Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Weekly Movie Podcast. Hey, did you see this one?
Yeah? Me?
Is it?
Yeah, it's me. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another exciting episode of Hey, did you see this one? And I'm your host. It's me, Steve. This week we're doing an oldie but a goodie, considering to me. That's what I think it is. I feel like everyone else hated it, but that's fine. It's a space western. Actually, it's more like a space cop drama, slow. Yeah, it's like a noir. There's lots of themes going on, and none of them should ever exist in the same movie together, but they do. And they also got the biggest trope of them all. Throw Sean Connery in it, see what happens then. That was like a thing they used to do.
But never Con Connery.
Never Con Connery. He is a sexual predator.
Actually, Sean Connery's pretty canceled. Gotta say, he said some things about.
Whoa, he's canceled now too?
He's being hysterical.
He got canceled before cancel culture was a thing.
So he never got canceled.
Yeah, there was a really disturbing Barbara Walters interview. I don't know if you've never seen it. You should look it up. And if you don't, you'll never understand why he got canceled. Let's just say he likes to use an open hand slap to the face. Anyway.
I hear one of them is discipline and the other one is... I forget what the other one is.
You should probably forget both of them and just never strike anybody, Kalen. How about that?
No more punching for anyone ever again. Unless
I only punch walls.
Well,
I only punch walls.
Maybe just don't punch balls either.
You're a little old for punching walls.
The movie we're doing tonight, before this gets too derailed right out of the gate, is the movie Outland from 1982, I think, or 81?
81.
81.
On the moon of Io.
So it's right on the cusp of it's right on the cusp of the beginning of 80s cinema, the end of the 70s cinema, where there's that very clear overlap where they're still kind of working with the old technology and the old fundamentals of screenwriting and clinging on to their Hollywood heroes, but they're also kind of rolling right into cop dramas, but they're like, we can't just do another cop drama. That was all the 70s. How about a cop drama in space? And that's kind of what this movie is.
That's also when every TV show it usually goes bad. When
this is like
recording in progress.
This is
Don't
like
worry
jumping.
about that.
This is like jumping the shark. The movie, you know, like how every horror franchise eventually ends up in space.
Yeah.
This
exactly.
is like
Power Rangers,
an entire
Jason.
It's like everything does it, and this is like an entire genre of like filmmaking being like, you know, we've never done. Like, we could do this
in New York. We've done it in New York. We did a whole decade of these movies in New York.
And then some guy was like, hey, it's the 80s now. I hear there's this great drug called cocaine.
And we love taking it.
Let's do it on Io, the moon of Jupiter
space.
that might be habitable. We're not sure yet, though. It could be. That's kind of like what I feel this movie is. But for that concept and the amount of like stuff that went into this movie, it's commendable. I'm not going to say it's a great movie that I recommend to everybody. It is commendable for what it is.
That's a good word. I'll concur with that word.
But anyway, let's get right into the when'd you see it, how'd you see it, why'd you see it, and we'll start with Kalen. Kalen, you go first.
Hello. Thank you for allowing me to go first. What was it, 2 weeks ago or whatever? Whenever we were first prepping for it is when I first saw it. And I'm really sorry to say, but I tried really hard to watch this multiple times, and I kept either finding myself getting distracted by other things or dozing off or whatever. So I first saw it for preparation for this episode, and then the most recent time was earlier today. I watched it again. And I think the word you used, Stephen, is perfect. Commendable. They did a commendable effort of what they were trying to do. I don't think they hit the mark perfectly, and we'll get more into that. But this was my first time watching it. I'm not gonna lie, I probably won't revisit it. But it was. There were certain things that I definitely did like about it for sure, and it was worth a watch. I'll give it that. Back to you, Steven.
Back to me. Over to you, Jason.
Oh, hello. It's me, Jason, the person that watched this movie also. And the way that I felt about it was that I couldn't keep my eyes open for most of it. I had this real problem. I've never heard of this movie. But I suspect I may have actually seen it before. My dad used to.
My dad loves boring space movies.
My dad used to love to rent movies that were very easy to watch when I was a little kid, that would coax us both into sleep. He would rent movies like Tron or Inner Space. Just these like
Lord of the Ring.
No, when I was a kid, dude. 30.
Does that one help you sleep though? Because that one helps me sleep.
Yeah, I hate the Lord of the Rings personally, but that's neither here nor there. My point is I seem to remember like the original. Remember Captain America, one that never really officially came out.
The helmet one or the one where he has the rubber?
The 80s one.
The 80s one.
There's like a TV one, and then there's like a movie one.
The movie one. He was like, I got this bootleg. So basically, he would rent these movies for like Saturday or Sunday afternoons. My mom was out shopping, and all I remember is just being like sedated with boredom. And I think it was because he always had such a raging hangover that he just needed something kind of quiet and needed me to like be focused on something. But also I think that movies in the 80s, like action movies, had this weird like, the cinematography in this movie is extremely strong. Like it's really well made. It just, unfortunately, because those elements are so well made and not modern, the way they do it now, they cut and keeps you engaged because we have monkey brains. Back then they did these like long plotting shots where you watch people walk down a full hallway with like 2 or 3 shots, you know, and the action parts were great, don't get me wrong, but as far as like a movie as a whole, I felt like you could have cut 10 minutes off of that fat and just sped it up a bit and made it the conceit of it being in space. We talked about that in our chat going into this, and I totally was like, why don't we play a little game later on the show where we just try to put this in a city? You know what I mean? Like,
I'm down with that.
Subtract and add things until we could just make this a hard-boiled cop. And also, to go back to what you were saying, Kaylin, this is kind of James Bond in space too, a little bit. He's not like a spy, but it's Sean Connery coming out of his going into his like non-James Bond acting years.
I feel like the only element is Sean Connery.
Pretty much.
That would connect it to James
Yo, that doctor lady?
Whew. I mean, you know what? The villainous aspect, maybe, like, because there is a very clear villain early on that he knows who he's... That's usually a plot point in James Bond movies, is like, you discover who the villain is, the hero meets the villain quite early on, and then they're like playing chess the rest of the movie. That's kind of like a James Bond trope. Yeah.
Also, hallway, can we give a little shout out to 2001 Space Odyssey?
Oh, that was another movie I wanted to mention because this whole time I'm going...
2001 Space Odyssey, shout out! You invented space.
It had the quiet parts felt like the quiet parts from Inner Space, 2001. And the other movie I said.
Yeah, there was like a brief moment in science fiction. Yeah, there was like a brief moment in science fiction where filmmakers were like obsessed with like the actual way that like space works, where it's like there's no sound, and you're like, yeah, but that's kind of boring.
There's no
fire. Okay, but that's also kind of boring. Like, we need fire and sound in space, or else it's just like.
Well, they had to be close to the planet because the gravity stuff at the end made no fucking sense. It was really inconsistent. The gravity system in this movie was really inconsistent. but they made it make sense as
I
soon as...
noticed that.
They also don't really
it 'cause
spend a lot of
it's
time trying to explain it, which is fine. Like,
Yeah.
it's whatever. Anyway, Jason, the first time you saw it was this time.
Was this
you
time.
think
Sorry,
that
I
maybe-
want in summation. I didn't mean to give you my whole review, but in summation, it reminds
Well,
me
I
a
hope
lot...
you have more than that.
I do. It reminds me a lot of watching movies with my dad as a kid, but this is the first time I saw it. But I do suspect my dad might have rented this at some point because it felt like I had those, had those moments where I feel like I've seen elements of this, especially the like wide shots of the space station. The best parts of the movie, hands down, are the mining rig from the outside, like the outside.
It's definitely a miniature, right?
That's what I was thinking.
Yes, it's
Well,
not a full scale.
Could have been a
moon
sound.
base.
Could have been a sound stage though, with like parts like they did for Honey I Shrunk the Kids. I don't know if that technology was a thing yet though.
There's also miniatures where they use like a miniature dummy and stuff. You can kind of tell, depending on the quality you were looking at it from. I'm gonna steal it from you, Jason, and talk about the first time I saw this movie. If that's
Over
okay.
you, Steven.
I
Right.
like you had never heard of this movie before, but I worked quite regularly as a beer delivery guy for a long time, and I
You're allowed
was
to drive with booze?
in the back. Yeah, you can't have it in the cab with you, but I had a person with me in the cab, and this guy was obsessed with all things science fiction and fantasy, but like only before a certain era. And he'd be like, "You seen this? You seen this? You seen this?" And I would be like, "No, I've never even heard of that." And he's like, "You ever heard of Outland?" And I was like, "I've never Outlander, the Outlander." And he's like, "No, none of that. Sean Connery, Jupiter Moon, Space Cop." And I was like, "What?" This sounds amazing. And he brought it to work for me. He let me borrow it. And I'm pretty sure it was a DVD. It was one of those those like shitty DVD cases that are made of cardboard that you like clip it open and it like opens up.
Oh, yeah. It had like one little piece of plastic.
Yeah, like a book lock DVD. Yeah.
Probably Shoutcast branded.
Yo, the first Matrix movie was that kind of packaging. There's nothing wrong with that. Also, the first Rush Hour was that kind of packaging.
All I'm saying is that if it gets wet, it's fucked. That's what I'm saying. It's a cardboard box. Anyway, so this is the first time I watched it. I got like really, really, really stoned and watched it, and I thought it was the greatest shit I'd ever seen in my entire life. I was like, this movie's amazing. I was hypnotized by the cinematography. The music was transporting me to Io, and like Sean Connery being like, "I'm in space." I was like, "He's in space. This is amazing." And when he's like telling that doctor, he's like, "Oh, slap your ass all over this lab, you fucking dirty doctor." And I was like, "This is fucking dope." And like
that's a marshal.
The guy like playing golf in space, and he's like, "You better get out of here. You're fucking dead. And if they don't like you, they don't like me. And if they don't like me, they're gonna kill you." And I was like, "This is like amazing. Like all of these elements are so good." And I think the way I was watching it was like literally like minute to minute when I was watching it, that obliterated out of my mind. I was like, every single minute is so good. But then when you look at it as a whole afterwards, it's completely forgettable. And I hadn't watched it since I watched it that one time, brought it home the next day, gave it to him, and I said, "That was the most amazing fucking movie I've ever seen in my life." And then when we were trying to pick this random movie month, I was like, "You know what? Let's pick this one." So I have only seen it once before this.
I'm glad you brought it to the table. I'm glad.
I am too, because I watched it again, and you know what? Like, there is still a lot about this movie that I think is. I don't want to get too much into it. Like, we want to talk about the movie, right? I'll run right into my review if I do it this way. But this is the second time I watched it. Was last week. I didn't rewatch it between last week and now. What, Kalen?
New hat?
No. This
now,
is one of
like,
the oldest hats I own.
Why now? Like, does your brain not go in like a straight line ever?
No. And I wasn't trying to interrupt. I was waiting for him to talk.
I usually wear it backwards. That's why you're confused.
Oh, that's why. Okay. Sorry.
I'm wearing it forwards because he wears a forwards cap in the movie a lot. That's
with
why
the cool thing on it.
Anyway, I watched it last week, and I have to agree with you guys. It was fucking boring as fuck. But there is lots of stuff in this movie that I think is worth discussing.
I couldn't stop thinking the whole time I was watching it that, like, if I mentioned this later in the review, but, like, if the three of us had watched this live together and had some beers and
we would talk.
We would talk about it. If I was getting
stuff,
stoned. But I was just, like, on my breaks watching it, like, I'm so tired.
Okay, you're watching it at work, though. You gotta sit down and watch.
I'm not watching it at work. I'm watching it when I have time to watch it over the last couple days.
All right, well, here's the thing, Jason.
So I wouldn't
you gotta watch a movie. You gotta watch a movie, you press play, and you watch it until the movie ends.
You need to
can't fucking press pause like part way through the movie. That's not how you watch a movie.
It doesn't really work.
That's how you watch a TV show.
Yeah, it doesn't really work for me.
That's wow.
And that's what you bring to the table. It's
Jason,
fine.
I know you can do it. I've been to the movie theater with you and watched a movie.
That was Thor, though. That was Outlander.
Thor was also boring as fuck. That movie was boring.
No way. What are you talking about? It's like a constant, like, look at all these lights.
It's like lightning in your eyes the whole time.
Thor's making quips. He's saying funnies. He's saying Taika Waititi written funnies. There were no Taika Waititi written. This movie takes itself way too seriously.
That's what's good about it.
There was
a
few
didn't
funnies.
take itself
There's
seriously.
a handful of funnies.
The Doctor is hilarious. The Doctor was every time she came on screen, I was like, she's gonna say some real shit to this dumb cop man.
I'm not an idiot.
Yeah.
Best line, hands down. My favorite fucking part of this movie.
My favorite line.
Her introduction is like he walks up and he's like, "Are you the doctor?" And she's like, "Yeah, take 2 of these and call me in the morning." She doesn't even prescribe him anything. She just walks away. Anyway,
what were you saying, Jason?
I'll get to it. I forgot. I wrote it down properly so I didn't have to paraphrase. Oh, it's your wife is a stupid lady. You want to go get drunk? And then Sean Connery off screen goes, "Yeah."
Yes, let's go get some drinks. I think it's like the kind of the best part is like most of his colleagues and stuff are younger, right? Like they're younger men, and like
ladies.
Okay, younger women, people, and she's like of his age, you know, and like clearly of his age. Like they're both older people, and they have like a weird mutual understanding, which is kind of good. And they have like a weird loyalty to each other, which is established through almost no dialogue, but you get the rapport immediately. Like he's like, no one on this base is loyal to me and ever will be, but she likes him. Like
I thought the jokes were the establishment. You know what I mean? Like she made.
That's exactly what it is. What I mean by nothing is there's no moment where the camera gets soft and low and they hold each other's hands. They're just like have a camaraderie that is like unspoken and understanding through humor.
Right.
In fact,
you nailed it on the head.
She gets a little bit nicer to him at the end, and then he like friend zones her basically. She's like, "I'm glad we're friends," and she's like,
"I have a son and a wife. My son calls me daddy, even though he's 11 for some reason." Very strange. I keep telling him to stop.
Hey, did you guys ever have braces as kids?
No.
Yeah.
I did.
Why? Enlighten me, Kalen.
Because I got hit in the face with a teeter-totter.
Okay.
No. Not why did you have braces? Why did you bring that question up?
Oh, because you talked about the kid, and that made me think about when the kid said, "Oh, I don't want braces. Do I need them?" And then so I was like, "Would you like crooked teeth?"
It's true. He did say that.
Okay.
It's very early on. Yeah.
Here's something I need to say to you, Caleb, because you seem to. You do not non sequiturs a lot, and the problem with the non sequitur is we can't hear the first part of it. We can't. You just say the part that is the part you want to say, but we don't know where it's coming from. So we give you that look.
That's a good point.
So you have to sort of tell a story with your question.
I need to paint the picture.
Exactly.
You don't know what the color of the picture is if I don't tell you.
Exactly.
Yeah, but sometimes it's funny when you tell us a painting and then afterwards you just yell red at us. We're like, "Oh, it's a red picture." Right, yes. Of course. Now we understand that you've yelled red. Anyway, shall we get into the plot of this movie?
Give us what? Should we do a little? Give us a summary.
Yeah, we'll do a walkthrough. Let's not worry about breaking down the whole plot because it's kind of.
Can we talk throughout the walkthrough? Can we talk about our thoughts?
Of course, yeah, of course. I will say this movie opens in the way that every single science fiction isolation story should open, which is like, yeah, exactly. It is like a Ghostbusters intro, like a cold open, yeah, where there's characters that are completely isolated to an incident that is going to affect the main character later on. That is like, to me, it's like very important. It has to always happen because if you're going to set something up, you can set it up beautifully with isolated characters that can be murdered and killed off, and then it's other people being like, well, like think about Jurassic Park. Shoot her! Shoot her! Like that part is amazing. Even Jurassic Park 2, the little girl running down the beach. Well, she was injured, but she'll live.
This opening scene got my hopes up and then shattered them.
What, the computer print? Computer font stuff?
The first bit where it's the miners in
the mining.
They're mining, and the dude's like, oh, there's spiders on me, and I was like, oh man, space spiders, and then it was all in his head because he's whacked out on drugs. Spoilers.
When Buddy said he's putting us on, I feel like you can tell when someone's joking and when someone's being like serious.
So he's having a psychotic breakdown.
Yeah.
They're getting in the suit. I gotta use this lightning spike to pull a hole to get the spiders out.
And then we get a great 80s head explosion, which is
I love that. Loved it.
Yeah,
inside the helmet too, which is even better.
The scanner's head explosion and the head explosion from Big Trouble both come to mind when I saw this moment. I was like, yes, dude, it's just
I was thinking
a balloon popping.
The Total Recall.
Yeah. His eyes popping out of his head.
Yeah. But I mean, perfect setup, right? And I know what you mean, Jason, where like you're like, whoa, what's going to be happening here? It's like way more frightening than what the actual reality of what's happening is, which is like an interesting subversion. But because it starts so strong like that, like you said, you were let down, and like I completely agree. Like as you go through, you start to realize like, oh, they're just they're just doing drugs.
It's not a ripoff of Alien. It's a copsploitation film in space where they're on.
Yeah, it's the equivalent to some guy being like, I got bugs under my skin, and like trying to cut his skin open.
Scanner Darkly.
That has that element of it, I believe. I haven't seen Scanner Darkly since it came out.
Yeah, me neither. I don't remember. But
you guys watch it again.
I mean, it's been done in like a million movies, right? Where someone takes too many drugs and they're like going bananas. And I do like that they do it a couple times, but by the third time where like the whole police crew are going around and like, if you kill her, I'll kill you. That's a guarantee. Or whatever. Like when they get to that point, you already know what's going on, right? You're like, they're tripping out on drugs because there's that whole scene where the guy is like passing drugs out, and there's the scene where the guy like takes some drugs and like walks
in his little
bed
elevator. Thing. He pulls down the shade. I could still see through that shade.
Yeah, you can't whack it in there.
No, just a bunch of bunks.
Basically, prison. So this, I kept thinking about the fact that you telling us that it was basically just it could have been done in New York but in space. Kind of,
I might have ruined it for you before you watched it. Yeah,
but only because,
sorry, I shouldn't have said that.
No, I know, but it kind of ruined it only because I didn't come to that conclusion on my own, and it's not a big deal. It's not like, oh, you spoiled the thing. I didn't believe you that that's all it was going to be. I kept waiting for like the big.
They're gonna find some sort of relic or something, some ancient relic. Like this is where we make the drugs from.
But yeah,
this ancient relic.
The drugs come from alien cum. Like nothing cool happened. They just it's just this cop who's like his wife's gonna leave him if he doesn't like get out of his funk, which is every cop drama anyway. And then he has to solve this dumb drug crime where the boss of whatever is sometimes it's a union, sometimes it's like
CEO.
Yeah, sometimes it's the CEO. You know, like RoboCop. You know, kind of thing. But there was no RoboCops. There was no robots. And here's the thing that bugged me the most. It's 1981. It's 1981. Cocaine has just hit the scene.
Why not just make it space cocaine?
They have the ability
Yeah,
to use their
basically.
imaginations and do whatever they want to make it more futuristic, but for some reason they made it to the planet Io with 1980s technology. Just they could do face to face, like they could do FaceTime was the only real like, wow, imagine if one day we can just talk to each other over the computer. They didn't. There was the fucking doorways. The things on the doorways were literally calculators. Did you catch that? They're literally.
I know they were keypads. Was it a
I
calculator?
didn't catch that they were literally calculators. There's
That's
like a
awesome.
pound key. There's like a division button.
Yeah,
That's fucking hilarious.
My code is 99281 divided by.
Yo, they should make fucking door codes with like calculator buttons like that, where it's like a math equation to get your lock.
Oh, Kaylin is now saying that maybe this is the real future.
See, that's what I'm saying. What it reminded me of, though, in the like, I like that Fallout had this thing. The Fallout video game series has this thing where it's the future in the 1950s because of they figured out fusion technology like way earlier. So the world ends and it's this weird like 50s, but there's hover cars like wasteland. I mean, this doesn't feel like that. This just feels like they somehow made it to the planet Io in the 60s. Now it's the 80s and they've been there for
well, I mean, you know, sometimes an imaginative creative team and director can take stuff and they can make it look more science fiction-y just by getting creative with it. But if you look at Alien, like the first Alien movie, which is heralded as one of the best science fiction movies and horror movies ever made, it is rife with like shitty future tech bullshit.
That's
right?
a good point.
Like it's not like the movies that were made in this time. No, though, if you go back and look at it, it's big boob tube screens that have green shitty text that are still all scribbly and shitty. Like they.
No, I'm not disagreeing with that. I mean the storytelling behind it. Like, you know what I mean? Like there was more.
Of course. I'm not trying to say that Alien and this movie are on the same level. I'm just saying that when it comes to what Jason's talking about, those things. It's very easy for us to be like, make it more futuristic, would you? Like they only had certain things to work with, right? So
that's true.
That calculator, the guy probably the prop master was like making the sets, and he's like, just throw a calculator.
Just put some $2 calculators.
That's all we got. Yeah.
I will say that for all its shortcomings in that, I think that this movie
calculators are probably more than $2 back then.
That's true, but I think this movie probably came out in theaters and blew people's minds because the spaceships looked like Star Wars quality. You know what I mean? When they look good. Yeah, when they were in the corridors, it felt like I was, you know, that looked great. And those giant they must have been like miniatures with matte paintings with moving parts.
The sets all looked really good too. Yeah,
dope. And I'm just nitpicking because like we're a movie review show, and I just wanted to express my disdain for some of the elements, but not for nothing, this movie probably blew people's minds when it came out. And honestly, if I had seen it in 1992 or 93, there weren't a lot of movies that even it would feel like an old movie even still, right? But there weren't a lot of movies.
I told you I saw it in like 2011 and it fucking blew my brain out of my head.
But you were stoned.
I was super high.
You know
I know.
I mean?
So I mean, you watched it at work in chunks. So maybe if you were high as hell, you would have loved it.
That's a good point.
I can attest that when I watched it the third time high. So
it
Jason,
was slightly better.
If they made this a little bit more like this same movie, but just cut it and edited to make it a little more fast paced, it would have been more engaging.
Or just
for
like,
sure.
Just less,
I agree.
Just less like.
I think the mystery should have not been revealed until the end of the second act.
Yeah.
Rather than it being revealed at the beginning of the second act. Like it was like revealed right at the end of the first act where like he figured out with the doctor, she's like, well, it's some sort of drug. But like we already knew that because we saw people doing drugs, right? Like they showed us. Which immediately like as soon as a movie shows you as the audience something and then explains it to you later and you've already figured it out, you feel like the movie is dumber than you. Where you're like, I already got it. Yeah,
and it
I
makes
saw
it
them doing drugs.
The genre changes. It's no longer a mystery because it was never only the main character is figuring out the mystery. So then it just becomes kind of an actiony sci-fi thing. It's not really. I want to be following. There was a bit of that, like, what's going to happen even after it was revealed, because I still wanted to know the extent of this drug, but it's literally like you just find out that
it's a workhorse drug. It's like it's like a Vietnam War drug. Like it's not even like a fantasy or sci-fi drug. It's like a drug where they're like cocktail. It makes you work for a really long time and then you go insane and you're like
PCP.
What?
It's like PCP speedballs, but it's like this red
I don't know what
goo.
PCP is like.
PCP, the meme about PCP is it gives you Hulk-like strength. I've never done it personally.
What, you've never gotten wet?
PCP. But I've done like...
Isn't that called getting wet? I know Training Day. Isn't that PCP?
Maybe. I think PCP just became meth at some point. I don't know.
More and more I'm realizing that Kalen like knows more about movies than I do every time we do one of these. You're like, haven't you seen Training Day? And I'm like, I have, but what do you mean? He's like, I'm talking incredible. Training Day here. You're going to get what? I've seen Training Day, but I wouldn't have thought to be like, you ain't getting wet over here.
You ever have your shit pushed in?
Washington.
It's Tuco from fucking Breaking Bad. I'm going just tangent on a tangent.
No, great.
But that actor who plays Tuco, who is in Training Day, is like, I cannot figure out where this guy's acting begins and ends. When he takes a hit of the blue fucking meth and goes tight, yeah, it's my favorite scene in anything ever. It's my favorite like villain moment. You really get a feel that this guy, and then he beats the shit out of his nephew.
Yeah.
For being like, yeah, because Walter's just like standing there like, you like the stuff? And then Tuco's like, oh yeah, you better come back with the good stuff. And then the criminal next to him is like, yeah, don't forget who you work for. And Tuco's like, you calling this guy stupid? And then just kills him. He accidentally kills him. Anyway, I've been watching Breaking Bad, and I can tell. I kind of held Breaking Bad to this movie a little bit, so my bad. Probably a little bit different in writing, a little bit different in pacing. But I do love I love crime drama and crime, but I think that crime sci-fi might not gel.
I think that crime sci-fi can work, and it has to be set in a world where it's already established that humanity is not the only
like a Ferengi episode of a Star Trek,
like Star Trek, like you do like a if you were to take the concept of Star Trek or the Star Trek universe and you just do like a crime show. Which is, I think, what they were trying to do with Picard in the first season, where you're like, ugh. No, not Picard here. Why is Picard here? He's like the most decorated captain to ever live.
He's dressed like a pimp.
And he's like, he puts that eye patch on in that one episode. Like, I don't know, I'm not much of an actor, but yeah, terrible.
They just wheel him out of his fucking Professor X chair now.
All right, so Sean Connery's character after the PCP outbreak happens is he's already stationed here. It's not even like he's called in to deal with this.
He's been there a few weeks. Yeah,
he's been there a little while, and he is replacing the previous like security chief or whatever. Marshal. He's basically marshal, which is like, it's basically like a police chief. He's like the top of the order of all the police authority of this. On
paper, because the CEO, boss guy or whatever of the mining company is like, these guys, they work hard, and sometimes they gotta fucking let loose a little bit.
He literally says, they work hard, and we gotta let them play hard. If you know what I'm talking about. Now get the fuck out of here.
I got the best workers. I got the best prostitutes. I got booze that ain't water.
Yeah.
I gotta let my boys blow off a little steam once in a while. If I gotta get
sometimes you just gotta let your fellas get their dinkies stinkies. Now get them out of here.
Hey, did you guys call your Hot Wheels dinkies?
I absolutely did. See that, Kaylin? That was a good non sequitur. That worked because I knew what you were talking about.
Thank you.
Also, how about Sean Connery's accent in this movie? Was he trying to do an American
What,
accent?
the same as always?
No, he's doing something. Felt like he was doing a little.
What is he doing? What is he
felt like
doing,
he
Jason?
wasn't going like full Scottish. He was trying to
Heavy,
be like,
not heavy.
Well, he like
"Hello,
never really
I'm
goes full
from
Scottish.
America.
Maybe like northern Scotland.
No, it's
I
further north.
Central
you go.
Scotland.
You can tell it's like written by it's like I don't know who wrote this movie, but there are moments in it that I'm like either the
Jason, are you
director
right
or
back to the computer.
Pardon?
Sorry, go ahead, Stephen.
I'm just keeping an eye on our stream because I think I'm having some internet shit tonight. So I think the stream keeps like buffering.
Okay.
So that's why I keep looking, and it's making me crazy.
I think that either the writer or the director of this movie, or maybe both, were like old men.
That sounds about right.
And this is about the time that like the studio changeover was happening, where the old guard was dying off, and like new blood was coming in, taking over the studios, and giving like Steven Spielberg like all the money. Be like, all right, Spielberg, make your fucking ET movie or whatever. And like, have you seen that Empire Strikes Back? It's a pile of shit, but it made a lot of money. Let's go, Return of the Jedi. So for this, they're like, all right, yeah, cops in space. Everybody loves cops. Everybody loves space. Everybody loves drugs. It's gonna be great. But then you like see these scenes where like she's like gives him a kiss, like I love you, and he's like I love you too. I've got to go because you smell good, and he like walks away, and then he's like walking to work, and then she like goes like to like a bulkhead of a spaceship, and she's like. And he's like, what? What's wrong? Why are you acting like you're from Gone with the Wind
like,
all of a
the
sudden?
very end scene where he's writing the letter to be like, I'm coming, I'm gonna come.
Yeah.
And he's like,
keep the ticket warm.
So we'll talk about this as we go. Yes, exactly. We'll talk about this as we go. But later on in the movie, it turns out that you have to go to sleep for a year to go back to Earth. The family wants to move to Earth. Sean Connery wants to stay and figure out this crime. And he thinks he's not worthy of not figuring out the crime. It's a whole thing. We'll get into it. But what happens is at the end, spoiler alert, the story's wrapped up and it's a happy ending.
Wait a minute. You telling me this movie ends at some point?
No, we're still living it now. At least it feels like it. What ends up happening is he just ends with him writing a letter to his wife on a fucking green old school.
That's a good way to end a movie, though.
MS-DOS.
And he said, no, it's before
That's
DOS.
because she left. Well, not left, but like.
But he's like, he says, keep the ticket warm. I can't wait to sleep with you for a whole year. And I'm like, that's what a weird way to end a movie.
It's a funny joke.
Is it?
Yeah, it's like they're fucking for a whole year. He's like, I'm going to insert
not,
my
they're
frozen
in hyperbolic
penis
sleep or
into
whatever.
your frozen vagina.
Oh, imagine if they freeze them while they're together.
That's what I just said. That was my joke. You fucker.
The penis, my dear.
Well, you know what? The one thing that I did think they set up early on in the movie, which was appreciative, I was at least, is that they told you how far away things were from each other. Like they at the screen text.
Oh, like the level?
No, it told you like this is this far away from Jupiter, and this is this far away from the nearest space station, and this is how much time it takes for shit to, and like they just like established that with a couple of green texts at the beginning. Yeah. If you don't pay attention to it, then you're not gonna like ever give a shit. But like I was like, what is this? Why are they giving me this information? Why do I need to know that it takes 11 days for this thing to get to that thing? And then later in the movie they're like, we're sending out another crew, and I'm like, oh, 11 days. It's gonna take them 11 days to get there. He's got 11 days to Kevin McAllister this fucking base out. Like I was like, yeah, this is why they told me that at the
I didn't
beginning.
super put that together, thank you, because I did feel like there's a point in like the hero, the part of the story where like everything goes wrong. Usually if it's a group of people, they all like split up and go their separate ways for a while till the hero gets them all back together. That part in this movie is just showing him sad for like a few scenes. He's like playing squashed by himself.
Well, he's like
sad.
he's trying to rally people as well, right?
Trying to
Like
rally
he
people.
calls in his sergeant.
I could use your help.
He goes to the bar. He goes to the bar, and everybody's like, "Why is the cop at the bar?" And he's like, "I'm gonna get a drink now. I'm sad."
The reason is because the guy, okay, so I feel like we should go through the plot a little bit more.
Okay, sorry, I keep
yeah, because like I have explanations for these things, but without context, it doesn't really matter.
Hit us, Steve.
Well, we're only in like the first scene.
I know.
The spacesuits have Christmas
nice.
lights in
them. That was a good one.
And the Christmas lights are a nice touch, in my opinion.
The what? The space
The Christmas
suits?
lights in the spacesuits in the helmet.
Oh yeah, too many lights, right? Way too many lights. Yeah, that was like. I was like, I'm like, how would you see anything? Then they're all pointing right at the guy's face. He's like, hold my hand. I can't see. And he's like, I can't see either. I can't see anything. There's too many lights in this helmet. Who the fuck designed this helmet? The psychopath. So
keep going. I'll be right back.
All right. They, the tragedy happens. It cuts to him and his family. His wife is clearly apprehensive about them staying there, and he's reassuring her, like, "Don't worry, we've only been about 2
She goes to stay with her space sister or her space parents or whatever. She's like, "I'm leaving for a while.
I'm going to stay with my space mother. Our space son has never seen Earth." Ever! He's never been on Earth! He's a space boy!
He's never been to space Earth.
And he goes in and he has that meeting with Ray Barone's dad. He's like, "Listen, see?
Shepard.
His name's Shepard, too. Shepard. Yeah, it's fucking Mass Effect. How about it?
And Sean Connery's name is O'Neill because fucking of course it is. They gave a Scottish guy an Irish name.
Yeah.
Because of
Stanley O'Toole produced it, so he's like, it's gotta be Irish. Only the Irish can take care of Jupiter crimes. Yeah. It's a potato mine. They're like, we shot all of Earth's potatoes into Io many years ago, and we hoped they would sprout. Have they sprouted yet?
That's the ore they're going after. So the space station is. We find around this point that
it's like Stardew Valley, where it's like, there's so many potatoes like flying out.
So space EO is they're getting some ore. Did you get the name of the ore? Because I felt like they just kept saying we're mining ore. The ore that we're mining.
Titanium. It's titanium.
It was titanium. Cool.
Which is like, why not Titan?
Also, I don't think there was a movie title. Shut up.
Yeah, nobody said we're in Outland now. Well, he's like falling off the side of the space station. So we got up to the point where he's like, I let my space boys space work, and I'm gonna let them space party space hard or whatever. And basically inferring, let them do whatever they want, and like they continuously and overwhelmingly have prostitution on this base, which I think is like completely fine if like that's a thing that is instituted here, but like the way it's instituted, it seems like the worst way possible, right?
They there's one club and it has these weird, I don't know if it was meant to that they were holograms having sex, but it was just people banging on stages. No,
it like even the doctor says like the majority of people that I have to work with here are prostitutes, and like the main thing that I do is make sure that they're healthy for the miners, and then I have to deal with the miners who get into like minor fist fights. I didn't even mean that, but like they basically are just like reinforcing the idea that like everything here is like fine, like nothing is out of control. There's no, it's a fine place to work if you work here. It's a fine place to work here. In the mining level, the administrative level, the prostitution level, the bartending, like everybody has a job and they all work and everything's good. They missed
a key hard-boiled cop New York crime drama thing in this. Sean Connery not once goes and talks to a prostitute about what she saw, or a mechanic.
That's true, and they definitely, I agree.
He just surveils. He just gets to a point where he's like, I'm just going to surveil everyone.
He's like, listen, this is a small base, and I've seen everyone's faces, and I remembered them all. So she got beat up, he got beat up, and everyone's on drugs. So start punching everybody, and then that's kind of like the whole movie, right? It is like once he figures it out, he's just trying to avoid detection that people know what he's doing until he decides to go back to Shepard and like confront him. Which is, I think, the downfall of the movie, like you were saying, Jason, is that like it really goes from like this mystery to it just like drops to a level of like we all know as an audience what's happening, and now he's just dealing with like interactions with people and figuring out who he can trust and who he can't trust. The answer being he can only trust the nasty doctor, who's like super cool and super mean at the same time, but like they're basically like the same person. Like they have the exact same attitude, basically.
Did they? Did we get to the scene where they go to the infirmary, or they go to the room and try to like get the guy to come out, and the guy climbs through? Did we get to that yet? Because
so that's the third drug trip out, and like that's the moment for me where it becomes boring after that.
Well, me too. I was still kind of into it up till then, and I also was like that. So what happens is they get a call. This dude's losing his mind. He's got a prostitute or a girlfriend or something. He's got a woman in the room. He's barricaded the door by closing it.
Oh, that one.
And his good buddy, which is basically the only real twist to this movie later. He's got this one friend who's like, right before this, he like comes to him. He's like, I know you're sad, your wife's leaving you. Why don't I buy you a prostitute? Sean Connery says, play squash. And Sean Connery's like, no, just leave me alone. Anyway, at one point they go to this guy who's so earlier we see this guy take the drug, and then a few scenes later he's losing his mind in a room. His buddy goes up into the vents while Sean Connery tries to like, negotiate him off the ledge, so to speak.
I feel like
he's doing an okay job too, because the guy is like slowly seems to be becoming less and less insane as Sean Connery's talking.
But this is an element. This is an element I thought was going to be part of the movie, since it was an '80s action movie. When the guy jumps down into the room and blasts him with the shotgun, which happens, the gore is so grotesque that I was like, oh, I see what's going to happen throughout this movie. We're going to see a bunch of really grotesque gore. We saw the guy's head explode. Now we see this like open chest wound shotgun blast. So I was like, okay, it's like it's a violent action movie borderlining on horror. Total Recall. They're going for kind of an alien thing.
A little bit, yeah.
I made a note here that it kind of also elicits Blade Runner. Blade Runner is an infinitely better film, obviously, but it does have a lot of that grunge to it, like all the grungy metal has got steam coming out of it feel.
Everything looks like it's been used. It's
like Future, but like old school Future.
Yeah.
Or like used Future or whatever,
it's
right?
Like it's like going to like a brand new oil rig versus like an oil rig that's been used for 40 years. Like there's going to be a difference. Yeah.
Which adds to my my issue with it being like old past, and they never really explain what year it is, because if it's the extreme future,
I think they do. I think they say it's like two something or something. I think they say the year at the beginning.
So technology just stopped at 1989. They got like.
Jason, we already talked about this. We can't.
They were able to do
have our floating orbs and balls of light that we have now, because CGI didn't exist yet.
But they did do it like an ASCII art sort of. When he gets the image of the guy he's going to look for, they show it in green and black.
Worse than the than when he's talking to his wife or whatever. Yeah, that's like a weird thing where I'm like, why not just a photograph? Like, why is it like a weird hologram of green? You're like, and it's like.
There was another instance of really early CGI, not CGI, but really early computer generated. I know there's an actual computer generated image of like a wireframe on the computer screen, and that probably was $1 million to do, because
like, oh, we shouldn't have spent those millions on this. It's totally
a wireframe. Yeah.
We got one polygon for $1 million.
Make it worth the while.
And like it's like a giant warehouse full of computers, and like, we can do another polygon, but you got to give us another $1 million.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, and they're like, all right, we're out of business. Polygons out of business.
Okay, back to we'll just film. This was another thing. He talks to his wife later in the movie, and it's clearly like a pre-recorded that he's talking to. And I get that that's the technology they had, but like it didn't even feel like they did a read.
She's
where
like,
they're in
"Hello,
the room together.
I don't even know how to speak anymore." And he's like, "Well, go ahead."
It was like a visual voicemail.
As long as he said that, yeah, they're clearly not reacting.
Well, the first one was a visual voicemail, but there's a scene later in the movie where they're talking to each other.
Talking,
she says, "It's great to see your face again."
That's when the kid keeps calling him Daddy over and over again.
Daddy, I'm 11.
Yeah, it was weird.
He's like, "Can I speak to Peter?" And he's like, "Yeah, Peter's in the other room. He'll come in." And he comes in. And he's like, "Hi, Daddy." And he's like, "Hello, Peter. I love you, Daddy. I love you too, Peter. Did you know that I have to go to sleep for a year?" "Yes."
I'm gonna miss 2 birthdays.
"I'm gonna miss my birthday." "I'll get you 2 birthday gifts next year." And he's like counting in his head like 3, 2, 1. Oh
yeah.
He's just like responding to like.
Well, you'll fall asleep and then you'll wake up and it'll seem like it's only been a moment.
It'll be like it was nothing at all. Nothing at all. Nothing at all.
Oh, an update on our connection. It was 100% my phone spinning. It's I think the show's been going on.
I have the stream up. It's fine.
We got a viewer.
We got 1 viewer.
It might just be me and you, and then the 1 viewer you get for going live, but that's okay.
Anyway,
where's our boy? What's his name?
Do all of these videos stay on Twitch, or do they expire after a while?
They expire, but then you make a highlight out of it, and that stays up forever.
Okay.
I don't think we needed to get affiliate to do that. I think we could make highlights right from the start, but we have 279 followers on Twitch. So
anyway, guys,
back to you, Steven.
We're basically Hassan. We're basically Hassanabi. We're basically Hassan Piker. He's live right now with 30,000 viewers. We're live right now
Jason
with 3
loves talking about other YouTubers
viewers.
and streamers every time we're doing this.
Not every time, okay?
Just like 90% of the time.
Just sometimes. I'm sorry. I love us.
I know, but you're just driving traffic towards those guys.
No, the traffic is already there.
I know. So, explosive decompression happens, and then everyone dies.
Yo, his guts. You talking about the elevator?
Yeah.
Or the shaft or whatever?
Remember when the second guy goes and gets his guts blown out? Yeah, that's so gross.
Do you think that looked realistic? I wasn't sure if that looked like what it would look like.
It's the 80s. Those practical effects are almost perfect.
You know what they said at the same time while they were making it? They filmed it and they're like,
"Hey, you got any more coke?
Hey, you guys think that that's what it would look like? I'm not sure if that's what it would look like." And like everyone was like, "It's fine."
Tight.
No one else would know either. It was 1981.
Well, to be fair, the movie was probably filmed in 1980, but
it was 1980. And nobody knew. We still don't know what it would actually look like if somebody got sucked out of an air hole.
Yo, what if
because
I was
we've never
wearing
seen
a helmet with air, but everything else was naked?
You would freeze.
Your body would turn to ice crystals.
It's okay. 1 million below zero in space.
A million?
No, that's not literally, but the heat of the sun is what makes us warm. When we're not in heated.
And also our atmosphere.
As
well.
Yeah. And clouds.
Well, that keeps the heat in.
Atmospheres are
greenhouse gases.
Hey kids, science. We don't just talk about movies.
Science, bitch.
Anyway, I don't know.
Did I mention I'm watching Breaking Bad right now? Do you guys want to talk about Breaking Bad?
You're not gonna blow up. You'll just be like all the air will get like blown out very slowly. Anyway, I like the idea of like a hole in a spaceship causing everyone to have to grab onto shit. Like that's cool in my brain, even though I know that that's not how it works.
We know that because of airplanes that will happen, or a really high skyscraper. That's where we base that information off of.
But also, like we have people in space, and we know that when they open up a thing, it's not like not everything gets like shot out. It's just like the air goes out.
Air's trying to expand, though, right? Like that's the science, right? Like air's trying to take up the rest of the space, right?
The air is being pulled out into the space, yes.
Comment below if you know anything about what the fuck we're talking about, and please goddamn help us, because this is not Science Hour on Hey, did you see this one? This is three grown men who clearly didn't pay attention in high school science or junior high
I never
science.
had astronomy science class.
Astronomy?
Chemistry.
What the
What did I say?
Astronomant? And it's not astronomy.
World.
That's the study of
astronaut. I never had astronaut.
Okay, so after they go into the guy who's about to kill the stripper, dude jumps out of the air vent and shoots the guy, and he's like, he had a knife. I thought he was gonna kill me. And then Sean Connery's like, but he was standing down. And then the guy's like, oh, sorry. And then they're playing squash the next day, and that's when Sean Connery realizes, like, you're fucking working for this guy. You're working for Frank Barone.
Gotta make the snitches quiet.
To add to that, yes, it's like that was like an indicator that when you find out later, it's like, oh, okay, he shot him because he's on the other side. But I couldn't understand, because you can still do an autopsy on a shot body versus a body that implodes or whatever from lack of pressure or too much pressure or whatever the fuck.
They don't need to do an autopsy on the shot body because they shot him. They know what his cause of death was.
But they also explain why they don't do autopsies is because they fucking jettison all of them. And there's that shot where he goes into the room. Well, he goes into that room of bodies they're going to jettison it, and it's got a giant ribbon on it, like a comedically large red ribbon that says "body to be jettisoned," which I thought was the stupidest, greatest thing in this whole movie.
Your favorite part?
Body
like it's like a birthday present.
It was like
space.
It was like a parody. Is what it looked like. Yeah. A giant red ribbon that literally said "body to be jettisoned."
I mean, I'm surprised that you guys love the miniatures of the base. Like, when I saw the miniatures of the base at the opening shot of the movie, I was watching it on a 4K, and I was like,
I was watching it in 1080p.
It's clearly a tiny little.
There is an aesthetic about these
90.
old 80s movies when they're upscaled to 1080 and 4K that I do appreciate. Like you know you know what you're watching.
Yeah.
But the reason why
some of them though they go back and they remaster things and they like change.
Yeah.
They'll blur things around the base, like make it.
If the movie
better.
is a classic movie like Star Wars, but
like Aliens, yeah,
or Alien
exactly.
or Aliens,
but you watch something like this and you're like, holy shit!
They probably put a filter on it. They probably put like a upscale, like put it through the upscale machine.
Yeah, it's good enough.
But I do like it though. Like there's some sort of charm about it, right? Where you're like, oh man, I can definitely tell that not only is that a miniature, but that stuff in front of it is like.
But it's also tangible though, right? Like, yeah, okay, it's a miniature, but it's
tangibility does not always mean it's better though. Like sometimes you're like, holy fuck.
I want to disagree. I would rather a shitty looking what's the word when it's
practical.
What? Say it again?
Practical,
yeah, sorry. Practical versus CGI. Me personally, hands down, practical every time.
That's what I agree with Kaylin on that. I was going to say, it doesn't matter. I'll always like the attempt at a practical effect, especially in 1981, over them trying to use 1981 CGI, which is just a wireframe.
Right.
In 1981. Okay.
They did have CGI in the 80s.
Yeah, we're not talking about She-Hulk 2022 here.
But what I'm saying is that there are examples that we can use that you wouldn't even know it was CGI.
Yeah.
And like those are the times that it's like forgivable because you don't even know it. Like you think that you know what you're talking about, and then you're like, oh, I thought I knew better, and then you realize you don't.
We take for granted aging down technology in movies and TV now, like when they age down an actor to be like their younger self, we take that for granted. I was watching there's an early episode of Breaking Bad, where they show Walt talking to Gretchen. Gretchen's the person he worked with in the before time, and they aged them down by just like doing this smoothing to their face. So the whole scene they have to have them in like it's nighttime and they're in like a room being lit by the moon, so that it's all shady and like, you know what I mean? It's shadowy. And every time you got a good, clean look at their face, and this is like 2009, so like, what the fuck? It's just smoothed And we wouldn't have seen that watching it back then because it was like the TV only went up to like 720p back then.
Especially on those projector TVs with the big ass fat bottoms.
Hold on.
So my point
Steve.
My point is I agree with you, Kalen. A practical effect will always make me say, hey, that looks pretty good for a practical effect versus that looks like dog shit CGI. And I saw right through it immediately.
Oh, yeah. I mean, a pretty good practical effect is always going to be better than a pretty good CGI effect. That's 100% true. There's like an overlap. Yes. If that's the argument, I agree with you 100%. If you can tell it's CGI, it's bad. But if you didn't know it was CGI, then you would never know. That's the point.
Right
There's
now,
so much CGI you don't even know exists. What?
Actually, you know what? That's a lie. There's sometimes like the background of a scene more often than not has a whole shitload of CGI. And
they have stuff that you don't even like think about now. Like like the what's it called?
The brick from Spider-Man. That was actually a globe.
How the fuck did you know that I was going to talk about the brick from Spider-Man?
Were you actually being sarcastic?
No, not at all. That wasn't at all what I was going to say.
I wanted to bring up bad CGI, and I just for a second want to talk about The Fifth Element and also The Cell. But there's some dog shit CGI in both of those
Fifth Element
movies.
is the best.
I mean, those movies
They're
are
not
both
talking about
made in the 90s.
They're of a certain era, I know, but that's what I'm saying. Comparatively,
that was when CGI was trying to get like real frisky with our eyeballs, and we're like, ugh, what the fuck? Especially when you go back and watch now.
At the time, you're like, ugh, that's bad CGI, but it's acceptable for the time because it's it's 1999 or whatever.
Oh, Jason, did you see that TikTok I sent you the other day? That it's like this thing I've been trying to explain for years, and I didn't know how to explain it properly.
Oh, the thing with the when it was revealed to be a woman all along. That trope.
Steven, I'm hurt. You didn't send me a TikTok.
The sexy, beautiful thing, whatever. The Tron.
I feel like it was Tron, but you're not. I feel like you took something way different away from.
I thought it was the trope that it's like in Ready Player One. Like,
I was born sexy and I was born yesterday.
I was born sexy and I was born yesterday. I'm a woman. That's what I thought of. That's what I thought they were getting at.
No, what they were getting at was that it's like a sexy person, a sexy character who is a female who's sexy, but they're so fucking stupid that you're like they're like a child, and like that's what that character in Tron is. And I was like, I just realized what my hugest issue with Fifth Element has always been my entire life, which is that this woman is basically a child. Like she's like a child.
Yeah,
but she's supposed to be like.
Years old.
Well, she's also like 5 million years old at the same time.
Well, that's
supposed to be infinitely
built off
wise.
of the DNA of the hand or whatever.
But that's.
But she has the intelligence of an entire race.
Right.
That's like the whole. That's the way of getting around creepiness.
She's an alien. Yeah, but the thing is like
she has the innocence of a child, the infinite wisdom of an entire race of people, and she has the ability to fuck shit up. Which makes her badass.
Luckily, they don't really do that anymore, and we can look back at that as being like Bruce Willis's character is kind of a creep either way. For the time and now not, because he should have been like, oh, she's got the mind of a child. It's like
well, I mean, in his defense in that movie, he is kind of treating her like that for the majority of the movie until he gets to a point where
he's like, I got a boner.
I'm so horny. It's been years. My ex-wife is calling me for alimony.
Alimony. See, here, check this out. The Fifth Element is a good cop thing in space. For the most part, he's like
a better movie
cop.
than this.
I know he's a taxi driver, but he's like a hard-boiled cop.
You know how many strikes he has against his license?
I know that he's got 1 point left on that fucking driver's license.
And he actually talks like this. He actually talks like this in that movie.
And then when she falls through the roof, it's like, you have 0 points left. That's why the cops chase him. Good movie. Better than this movie, but not the movie we're talking about.
No. We're talking about the movie with the jettisoned corpse. With jettisoned corpses.
They jettisoned the corpses.
And head explosions. At least 2. I think there's 2 head explosions.
There's a couple. Maybe.
There's at least 2 that you see. The elevator explosion, you see the aftermath, but you don't see the explosion.
That's the scarier one, I feel like. The one at the beginning, you're like, this guy's freaking out. Like, I feel like if I saw spiders all over me, I would be like, I think I'm high or something. You know, it might be these drugs I took.
I had to watch a scene. I had to watch one of the deaths over 4 times, and I still can't figure out what was happening.
Which one?
The explosion in like the hallway where they team up on the guy, the doctor, and Sean Connery's out in the spacesuit.
Right.
He's just turning levers. And
I think he opens a gas or an oxygen valve or something.
But does the guy shoot a gun and it explodes? Because like,
doesn't he shoot at his shadow or something?
No, that's in the green room or the greenhouse, which was equally stupid.
Yeah, this movie is dumb.
Wow.
I made you guys watch Stay Tuned a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, but you know what? I'm starting to realize that Stay Tuned is maybe better.
This is pretty good. Stay Tuned is a pretty stupid, fun.
This is maybe the one time where my rank is like lowering as we talk.
Yeah,
about
your
stock. This movie is kind of shit. I'm still thinking about the heyday when I first saw it, where I was like, every scene is amazing.
You brought my talking about it has actually. I do really love the cinematography in this movie. There's some really cool.
The music is also.
The music is
dope.
good. For all of the poo-poo I've put on the like long plodding people walking down hallway scenes, there's something to be said about this feeling like almost like a video game at times, especially when the scene I keep thinking of is right around this slightly later in the movie. The doctor's walking down a hallway, and it shows like a wide shot of the hallway, and she like Resident Evil style walks down the hallway, and then the camera just like moves forward a little bit, and like Resident Evil, and she moves, and then it gets to a final spot where she's like she inputs a thing on the door, and I know that was just a director like being like, let's see what we can do here.
We need to make this look good, yeah. No, I think the whole movie is that, right? Like, I think that the cinematography in this movie is like, they thought this movie was going to be bigger. They thought this was going to be an Aliens, right? Like, and it wasn't. But they treated it like it would be. And I think that every movie should be treated like that. Like, you should go into every movie and think, we need to have a good cinematographer and make sure that everything is covered and everything is covered well, and we have interesting and creative camera angles to cover stuff.
I had an idea for a podcaster character who rates every movie a 5, and just because at the end he says, well, I give that a 5 out of 5 because I've never made a movie, and being able to make a movie is a 5 unto its own. It's a pretty good idea for a character.
I like it.
I feel like you should adopt that character for this podcast.
Never. I'm going to rate things stupidly low and not do the math.
I mean, I understand what you're saying, and like, so like for me, when I read stuff in terms of like scripts and things, if it says like the character walks down the hallway just after something intense has happened, you have to picture that walking down the hallway as something interesting. It cannot just be them walking down the hallway. It has to be like a very far away shot of them coming towards the camera. If it's something like that they're trying to overcome within that last scene, that next scene of them walking down the hallway has to represent something that came from that last scene, or else it's like, what are you doing? Why are you even having that scene with them walking there? It doesn't belong there.
That's what I kept thinking about.
And this movie does that well, because every single time he's walking down a hallway, it's representative of something he's just done, and like that's why it's
going
towards a way, like even if they do like a weird shot where it's blacked off, it's like 2 black bars and it's just a tube, and it's like a silhouette of him walking sideways, like that represents that he doesn't know what's going on. Everything's been black. Like there's so much creative shit you can do with a camera that can make the previous scene or the scene coming up way more interesting. And it's those moments are meant to make you think, right? Like, they're not there just to be there. If they're there just to be there, you get shit like Sucker Punch or whatever, where like he just is like throwing it in because it looks good, and it's like, yeah, it looks good, but why
Steve,
is it there?
So let me stop you for a second. Who was the director for Old Sucker Punch there, buddy?
Snipper?
Snack Snipper. If you watch anything that Zack Snyder puts on film, he's a great director, and I will completely agree with anybody on that.
But he's also a good cinematographer. But I think that
the things that he does in his movies sometimes are like dude, just take a step back and let things breathe a little bit. And Sucker Punch is the ultimate example of him just being like, but what if then? But what if then? But it's like Eli Roth making a horror movie. He's like, but what if then? And
Yo,
then what
Cabin
if
in
then?
the Woods, or The Cabin, or whatever it was called?
The Hostel?
No,
No,
Cabin.
The Cabin in the Woods. Yeah, I know what you're talking
No,
about.
Cabin
I
in the
don't think
Woods
it's
is
Cabin in the
J.J.
Woods, I think
Abrams.
It's called The Cabin.
Yeah, but Eli
like
Roth is
Eli Roth's
in
first
Cabin in
movie.
the Woods. As like he's an
It's got
actor
that
in
kid from
movie.
Boy Meets World, not the boy that meets the world, but his friend Sean.
But his friend who never met the world.
Who never
ever.
met the world. He didn't even meet his
he
own
had
dad.
a hard go at life. His dad left him.
He did have a hard go at
It's
life.
true.
You're right. Remember
It's true.
when he wanted to like marry that teacher or whatever, or like have him be
I
his dad?
fucking love older
Not
women.
married. He just was like, will you adopt me? And he's like,
Well,
you're
it's like
14.
when you marry a child, it's like your son now. Right?
Yeah,
That's how that works.
that's how that works in
That's-
Greek times.
Ugh, gross. What were we saying? Oh man, I got really hard on to fucking cinematography there for a minute. Okay,
You got
so
real
yeah.
hard from thinking about men marrying boys. We all go there sometimes.
Oh my goodness gracious.
What? You don't think I see penises when I watch porn?
Wait a minute. You saying I'm gay because I saw several penises in the last porno I watched?
You're saying I'm gay because I only saw penises in the last porno I
You're
watched?
telling me I'm gay because I got a penis attached to my frickin' body?
You saying I'm gay because I kissed a girl?
I kissed the girl who kissed the boy. Does that make me gay?
Is it true?
I will say this.
That if you
I was
don't
watching
use
the
it-
movie.
You lose it.
Yeah, exactly. I was watching the movie though, and I got distracted for it. Like I just kind of lost interest for a second and started fucking on my phone. And
You
then,
fucked on your phone? Holy Moses.
hell yeah, I did. And then the soundtrack and me touching my phone was matching up just like coincidentally. I was like, oh, what the hell? And I was like, oh.
And then what happened?
Yeah, what
That was
happened
it.
right after that, though?
No, I realized that it was me, and then the movie just lining up coincidentally.
I wrote
I
down.
see.
I wrote down the name of
And
the
then
drug.
Frank Barone went, ha!
I'll
So,
be in 20 years from now. I'm going to be on Everybody Loves Raymond, and I'm going to look like a shaved penis.
I'm going to look exactly how I
That's
look
who he
now with
Yeah, he's
no
God
the-
hat.
damn, I couldn't figure out who he was.
the
I knew I
grandpa.
knew that face.
Also,
He's the grandpa.
what's this?
He killed
Katzenberger?
it, by the way. He fucking killed it.
Katzenberger from fucking Cheers. What's his name? Mike Katzenberger? No, that's not it. Cheers. Katzenberger. Jonathan Katzenberger? John Katzenberger?
Really? I just guessed.
Johnny Katz. You're talking about Johnny Katz over here?
Cat Stevens?
Cat
No,
Stevens?
the mailman from Cheers is in this movie, but I couldn't find him. He might have been just in the
The
background.
one with the fro?
Norm?
Yeah, no, not Norm, the other dude.
Oh, the guy who's in
Blonde?
all the Toy
Mustache?
Story movies?
What's that?
That's his voice.
No, John Ratzenberger. Sorry, John Ratzenberger from Cheers. He plays. It's not George Wendt. That's Norm. This is.
He's in all the Toy Story movies, right?
Yeah, he's the dinosaur, right? Or the pig?
No, he's the piggy bank.
The piggy.
Is he the
piggy
guy
bank?
with the mustache?
He's the guy with the mustache. He was the
Yeah,
first
okay.
man to ever have a mustache.
Yeah. Everybody before that was just trying.
It was a stash mush. Stash mush.
They're
I
like,
like
I keep
that.
trying to grow a stash mush, but I can't do it.
Don't make me
How about a
mustache
mus-
on you guys.
Stash!
Imagine my hand is my chin, and my mustache is just my mustache.
I'm gonna look up who John Ratzenberger plays on Cheers because I feel like I should be able to.
I think it was a mailman, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was a
Yeah, it
mailman,
wasn't
but he had
Norm,
an
it was
iconic
the other
name.
guy.
Yeah, it's like
Oh.
Gorn.
It was like the Gorn or something.
It's like Borg.
Anyway, so after he goes and confronts Frank Barone,
He played.
from
He
everybody-
played Rex Rigger on Captain Planet. Wow. He was Cliff.
Yo, Captain Planet is the shit.
He was Cliff.
You eat hurt, scum.
He was Cliff. Cliff and Norm, your bar flies incarnate.
the Barflies. They're there. They're in space with Sean Connery, and Sean Connery goes, "Hello, Cliff." good to see you again.
Good to see
What
you.
are you drinking? Let me get you another. And he says, give me a old-fashioned, and I want lots of ice.
Okay.
Can I get a strawberry daiquiri?
So I wrote down the name of the drug. That's good for something on this podcast, right?
Yeah, tell us what the name of the drug is. It's called Red Sand or some shit.
Polydichloric euthymol amphetamine.
Right. And it makes them work like horses until they die.
I wrote super cocaine that makes you crazy.
Isn't amphetamines like a pandemic thing right now?
No, amphetamine is just a description of a drug.
It's like cocaine, or it's uppers basically.
They put amphetamine at the end of like the half drug.
The science word. The science word, yeah.
Yeah, it just means up. It means it ups things. That's what amphetamine means.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, there's an amphetamine problem all over the fucking world at all times, and it always will be a problem, I think.
Yeah. Also, opioids or downers, and it's like the downer, and that's also an epidemic. So this is the part of the movie where he just starts full on.
Yeah, he goes and he confronts Frank Barone. Frank Barone says like, shouldn't have done that, because he goes into the meat packing plant and like fights all those guys and beats the shit out of them, and he finds his partner strangled to death inside a locker or some shit.
Yep.
Right? That's right.
Well, we skipped over some stuff, but we've been just kind of talking. Yeah, you're right. Yes.
So his friend, he confronts him at the squash court, and his friend says, like, you know, I've been working here for a long time, and like I just let them do it, and I just look the other way and I take my money. And then he's like, I'm gonna fucking confront him. And he's like, well, what do you want me to do? And he's like, nothing, just fucking keep taking your money and look the other way, which is like a huge diss, which I think this is what I think. It's like he told him to do that, and he probably went to go confront somebody about it, and he's like, listen, I can't be on the payroll anymore. Like, he probably tossed the money on the table, right? Like, because he was like, fuck, this guy's so golden hearted, I gotta be on his side.
It's the cop.
This is what I got
the cop
from it
drama.
anyway.
It's the part in the cop drama basically where he's like, "We got to take away your badge and your gun. You're too reckless." But instead,
and we're also going to take away your only friend as well. Like they threw his friend away. Like, the way I pictured it is like one of two things happened. That guy was being recorded in that squash court, and they saw him say that to him, and they killed him. Or when they tried to come bring the next batch of money, and he just probably like tossed it back to them and was like, I'm not on the payroll anymore. And they just like fucking strangled him. Like, oh yeah? I don't think so.
All right, when he falls out the closet.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Sorry, I thought you were talking about O'Neill, but you're talking about his buddy at this point.
Buddy, yeah.
Who was like, yeah, I work for you, but I'm not going to double cross my homie.
Yeah. So after that happens, he then realizes he's on his own, like, and the only person he can really confide in is the doctor, because the doctor's like, I don't give a shit about anybody here, and nobody gives a shit about me.
This is when he does the shit where he just does full on Batman surveillance of the place.
Yes, he goes into like surveillance mode. Yeah. He uses surveillance cameras, and he captures one of the dealers, right? Like, he finds one of the dealers like doing the dealings,
doing dealery things.
But that guy gets killed before he can question him, right? Really?
Yes. There's the part where he catches the dude, he takes him into custody, he put him in those holding cells where you're just floating in zero gravity, which I thought was the stupidest thing I've ever seen, but also great. Like a great dumb, I would have never thought of that, to just have this person floating. And he threatens him by saying like, "Oh, well, sometimes you'll die accidentally because the wire will choke you out. Your breathing."
But also, I could just cut it with this scissors.
Which is what happens to the guy ultimately. He leaves.
Yeah.
He's like, "I'm gonna go talk to that guy." And he's like, "Oh, you're having a good time hanging around in there?" And he turns the light on. The guy's fucking. There's blood.
That is a very cool prison. Yeah, I forgot about that. That's like a cool way to have somebody in prison where they just can't feel their own like weight.
Yeah, I think it's weirdly like too tortury for it to ever be employed, but I feel like humans would like do that for a while, and history books were like, well,
it's like infinite nothingness if you can't. Because imagine trying to like swim through the air, right? But there's no air pressure or whatever.
Yeah.
So like
gravity.
you doing this doesn't do anything.
It's torture.
Yeah.
It's like being put in a deprivation chamber as you're.
I want to do that. I want to do.
There's gonna be some like United States of America V3 on like the moon of Pluto XO 124.
They're doing anti-gravity fucking.
They're still using anti-gravity torture.
They're using prisoner of wars and anti-gravity technology, torture, imprisonment, like Guantanamo Bay. Remember that 400 years ago? Sean Connery.
You guys like Mexico?
I did make a point to write down that Sean Connery is a pretty good actor. He's pretty hammy.
Piece of shit.
Yeah, he's pretty hammy, but like I've been watching a lot of like people's acting styles a lot lately. Just watching what they do, like to make moments. And there's a lot of eye acting that goes into just acting 101. You gotta like look. You're just always looking around because people are just always darting their eyes. If you're like wooden actors,
your eyes are like the most emotional.
They're the most expressive part of your face, right? Obviously,
window to your soul, as they say.
Exactly. But the thing is like you can. When somebody's a bad actor, they'll be like delivering their lines like, "Hello, I am delivering my lines." And if I was just like, "Hello, I'm delivering my lines," it's like infinitely better.
I was watching Kalen the whole time you were saying that, and Kalen was moving his eyes like up and down. And he's like, maybe I could be an actor one day.
Anyway,
were you doing that? Kalen? Yeah, you were doing it, you fucking crazy bastard. That's so funny.
And also, to go back to us talking about how boring this movie is. There's some movies where like. I'm taking notes while I'm watching a movie that's not boring, and it's making the movie more boring for me. This movie...
No punches held on this podcast. I'll tell you that much.
Trying to...
Well, it's video.
Trying to take notes while watching this particular movie.
While like also working at your job.
I wasn't working. I was on breaks.
I was eating
I was on
lunch.
breaks. 10-minute breaks. Every half an hour, I took 10 and I watched a little chunk.
Yeah. I was
What
really...
do you eat on your breaks?
What do I eat?
Do you eat on your breaks?
No, I get lunch at some point. I either buy lunch at No Frills and make a sandwich, or I go to fucking Popeyes and...
You buy a loaf of bread and a package of sandwich meat?
Lasts me a couple weeks.
Be right back.
I'm assuming you don't make sandwiches out of all of the loaf of bread. So do you use the leftovers for the next break? Like the next lunch break?
So I buy a loaf of bread, put that in the freezer. Okay?
Yeah. Freezer? Oh, man.
Hey,
you ruined the bread.
I got a full kitchen. False. I disagree with you. You get a freezer bread. Put it in the freezer. I buy the square pieces of cheese pre-cut that you open the thing and it recloses.
Singles? Kraft singles?
No, I buy nice cheese from President's Choice. And then I also buy like a ham or whatever, usually ham. I put
say lunch meat or whatever.
But like the one that you can open and close, so it lasts a few weeks, no problem.
The plastic thing? Yeah,
Yep.
I like that. Yeah.
And then I take 2 pieces of bread, a little bit of mayonnaise, a little bit of mustard, boom, boom, cheese, ham, boom. Then what I do is I buy lean cuisine.
That's the frozen pasta?
Yeah, trying to watch my poundage. So I have a little sandwich, little frozen lean cuisine, boom.
And
a little Coke Zero or
you
bubbly.
Majority of the time work from home, so these ingredients are in your homestead.
No, when I'm home, I get up, I start work.
Do you have a work fridge at your office?
That's what I'm saying. At work, we have a full kitchen.
Oh, okay.
So when I'm in the office, that's what I do. The last 2 days I was in the office. I did actually get Subway today. I don't know who I'm trying to kid. I got Subway today. But
what did you get? Chicken bacon? Ham?
I get a BMT with bacon. All the veggies except for no olives because they can get out of here. But I do get banana peppers.
When was the last time you tried olives?
And
because
jalapenos.
I used to not like olives, now I like olives.
I like olives. I just don't like them on Subway subs. Anyway, Steve, can you take us home, please? I want to go watch wrestling.
Okay. So after all that shit happens, he fights those guys in the meat locker. And then he intercepts the message from Shepard. And Shepard's like, all right, I need to talk to the boss. And the boss has like the worst voice acting voice. It's like a radio broadcaster from that era.
And he's like, hello, I'm your boss.
He's like, you know that if anyone finds out about this, the next person on the chopping block will be you.
Maybe that was John Ratzenberger.
It was like me doing it. I'm not.
What? You're better than that. Don't cut yourself short.
Here's my impression of Steve's. Here's my impression of Steve's broadcaster voice. You find yourself in a room, and in that room,
surrounded by
other rooms. I was able to.
One night, room is more of a room than the last room.
One night I was hanging out with Steve, and I fucking nailed that voice so hard because I can hear it in my head, and I can kind of. It's one of those impressions I can kind of do sometimes, but I did not.
Impression of me doing an announcer.
You find yourself in a room.
That's pretty good.
Yourself in a room.
You find yourself in a room.
Surrounded by
doors and other rooms.
And through each door there is another room surrounded by doors.
And in the last room there's a bookcase, and on that bookcase
there's one door, but when you open it, it's like, oh, it's reversed back the other way.
And it's just a bunch. It's just a bunch of rooms.
So many
also,
doors.
It's like you get shrunk down, and like now you're in an apartment building. Okay, I don't know what that bit was, but
and now you're in a miniature room full of miniature doors.
No, I'm good at it. I'm better than that guy. The guy who's like, well.
Hello and welcome.
Did you get my message? Yeah. We sent you 11 of our best men, or whatever. How many hitmen did he send? He sent like a couple of guys.
Well, there's like the new people coming in, and then there were 3 hitmen. There were 2 hitmen that were obvious, and they were like putting together guns in plain sight of it.
You know what? Like, if this movie was remade, I think they could make this movie into like a fucking dope ass movie. Like, this could be a dope movie.
A shot for shot remake.
It has to be set on. It cannot be on Earth. It has to be set on Io, and it has to have like way worse consequences for the drugs. Like, the drugs have to be like you're working and then all of a sudden your head explodes into like fucking tentacles
into cordyceps like, into cordyceps from The Last of Us. So you explode into a cordyceps zombie. That's what I want to see.
Yeah, or you attack other people.
They had the technology to show the hallucinations or whatever, right?
Maybe that's the one piece of this movie that's missing, is that the drug shouldn't just make you become suicidal or like murderous. It should make you like become so murderous that you're like, you actually think everybody around you is trying to kill you. Because like the one point that you see that almost is when that guy is with the prostitute, and he's coming to get you. You're just gonna blast me, and you're gonna blast me. And he's getting crazy. Like, imagine he like freaked out so hard that his like arm started like doing its own shit, like, and it was like barricading a door and like strangling her at the same time, and the guy in the vent is like, holy fuck, he's like holding her up by her neck and the door closed at the same time. Like, that kind of shit would be scarier, right? But like, more of that. You need to have more of that, because there's like this, like you said, like I told you guys earlier, like the 11 days before those hitmen arrive, why isn't he like setting up fucking like, logs that can
literally doing a Home Alone situation. I will say though that when those dudes show up, they have a extended scene of a spaceship landing, and they blew the wad on that scene.
Yeah, I
for sure.
Again, like, it's the cop drama stuff where they're like, we don't need any, like, they don't need to have fucking spikes and shit, and they don't need to be like they just need to be 3 guys show up, they're professionals, they're gonna get the job done, and like that's like some fucking old man who's about to die.
It's a numbers game.
When fucking Charles Bronson took care of business.
That's true.
In Death Wish 3 or whatever.
When Dirty Harry was, you feel lucky,
exactly.
punk. No, what I mean is the scene. This reminded me of the new Dune movie, actually, which also has a lot of really boring, and the old.
I've
Dune
never been.
too.
Was it good?
The new Dune is much better than the old Dune. The old Dune is very much like this movie, where there's a lot of just like blah 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 blah, blah and then quiet. But both movies have these scenes that were whatever. Shut up. both movies
Jason
have
considers people talking to each other, blah 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 blah, blah, and then
quiet. But what both movies do is they both blow their wad on these epic like scenes that show perspective, especially the new Dune. And this movie, Outland, has this scene where a ship just lands for about 5 minutes, and then the little like
5 minutes.
It's very long, but it's good. I'm saying this is good. It's landing, and then it lands, and then all the little like things that like hook into it, and like the things are opening, and that was for sure a miniature, I would say. But like the level of quality that they use in like would go on to use in like Star Trek, for instance, or that what's his face, Christopher Nolan uses in his movies, like these just really intricate, really well put together miniatures. And that,
I wonder if one day, like 30 years from now, someone will look at that moment in The Dark Knight where the car is like, and it's like, they're like,
talking about the rooftop shit?
I'm talking about the motorcycle bursting out of the car, like when his car is crashed.
When the two wheels become
if some fucking like Gen 1, like that's what they're gonna call them after Gen Z. Gen 1.
That was the worst miniature.
It was like
ever
they were like
seen.
sitting there and like the like forever, like just.
That's why I appreciate.
Corn!
That's why I'll always appreciate practical effects, no matter what, because going through the effort to actually make anything is always infinitely better to me. That's kind of the spirit of the new character I'm trying out, called Jason 5, and I always rate the movie 5 out of 5. Jason.
Johnny 5.
Nope, Jason.
I like Jason 5. He's cool.
Wait till you hear what I gave this movie.
You're like about to give it a 5, and then like you get like hammered in the head. Like,
and then Jason
like,
1 comes
I'm original Jason. I'm back. They didn't kill me.
Jason 2
1 out of 5
comes out saying, "Well, it was fine. It was watchable, I guess."
Anyway, so it's a beautiful moment happens where like he realizes what's happening after 11 days that he didn't somehow. I thought that he was going to convince the entire like police squad to like help him. You know, like that's what I wanted to happen.
Yeah, and they're like, "No, you have men." And he goes, "My men are shit."
They're all like, "We have families," and he's like, "I have a family too," and they're all like, "Yeah, but we care about our families." That's what they should have said, but they don't help him, and he has to fight them by himself. Luckily, they're kind of like not the best men that I thought they would be. There should have been like one guy who was like super good, but they all seem like the same level of okayness.
Yeah, it was a bunch of like nobody goons, and then Sean Connery was like super cop comparatively, but he was just like a pretty good cop. He was like good at the.
But he also had like the help of Dr. Lazarus, which was like she was watching the cameras.
I never caught her name. It was Dr. Lazarus. That's a fucking dope name.
Yeah. She has a cool name, yeah.
She's a cool name.
Her name is the only name that I caught throughout because I was like, Dr. Lazarus, cool. She's like a space lady. She's the only space person. Everyone else has like the most normal ass sounding name.
Can we just for 1 second? I just want to also mention that they didn't even try to do like a laser beam. This harkens back to what we were talking about, it being just a cop drama in space. He's just rolling around with a shotgun, and coming up into this final scene, he just goes and just fills his pockets with shotgun shells. And I'm like, what happened in history that allows us to get to the planet Io, the moon of Jupiter, Io, the moon of Jupiter, and you're still using fucking
it would never happen. It would never happen. Yeah,
you're still on dial-up.
Still on 14.4.
So you don't know that there's fucking gunpowder in there. It could be like a little spark charge or some shit.
A little laser beam. It is actually lasers.
Yeah.
Anyway, I wrote grabs his shoddy and he's off.
And that's when he's like, it's time to outland these motherfuckers.
They should have put in a little scene like they do in like Rambo and Batman and every parody of it, where he's just like, and it's like a close up, and he like.
No, this was like the in between point where they're like, "That's dumb."
I like.
You know what's good though? Long conversations between two
is,
characters that share a common trait.
I feel Mel Brooks should have done a thing in one of his movies, maybe a Leslie Nielsen movie, where when he ties the bandana, it goes like a shotgun. I think that would be a really funny joke in one of those parodies.
Hot Shots? What was that movie?
That is a funny joke. Yeah.
Hot Shots and Hot Shots Part 2. Maybe that happens. Maybe
they do it, like they pull it and then it goes back in. Like, yeah, that's very funny actually. Yeah. Why has that never been done? I've never seen that. I don't think I've ever seen that before. Like they're doing it to everything.
He puts his gun belt. He puts his gun belts on. It's like, and then the final joke is.
I like it.
I wrote that.
I just wrote that. Points.
I just wrote that.
Write it down. Write that down.
I don't need to.
Write it down and mail it to yourself.
Nope.
So that you have proof of the date.
It is. It's written here, and it's written on Twitch.
And in here.
Also, wasn't one of the guys, one of the inside men, like the deputy, the guy who was like, "Oh, we have children" or whatever.
Yeah, sure. I don't fucking.
That Clive, what's his face?
That was kind of disappointing because I was hoping that guy would show up to be like a friend, you know, like he would show up and be like, "I gained courage," like come down and like hit them with rubber bullets or whatever. They should all be using rubber bullets or lasers. Lasers, I guess, are better because like
you don't shoot a fucking shotgun in an airlocked environment.
You don't shoot anything in an airlocked fucking.
Guys, you don't know that it was a traditional shotgun. Just trust it was a space shotgun, please.
You still don't shoot anything in an airlocked hallway.
No,
yeah, unless people are shooting at you, then what are you going to do? Just be like, guys,
you let them shoot and suck themselves out and hold on. You hold on to the rafters or whatever they're called.
The rafters.
Look, we've been talking about this movie for way too long. Can we wrap it up, please?
Yeah, he goes back to the bar afterwards and he does like a crazy like. He goes
not at first though. First he kind of comes back normal, and then it's like, ugh.
And then he's like, "Fuck it," and I think that's like one of the only F-bombs in the whole movie, and he just sucker punches him so hard that he like flies up in the air. I'm like, is the IO gravity less that he could just like send someone through?
Oh damn! Maybe that's the reason. Gravity.
Gravity is.
I was like, this is ridiculous. But that is a very good point. It might be gravity.
Imagine you punch someone so hard they flew into the air before they hit the ground. Like they didn't just fall over. They like their feet went like a good 3 feet off the ground.
Wait a second. Hold on. I need to understand something about this gravity for 1 second. In the pictures on the promotional material you both have, it shows the moon of Io and then Jupiter. The moon of Io presumably has a slight gravitational field. And that is what's allowing the gravity to happen, right? But is the gravity? How can that guy be in that like anti-gravity cell? I assumed it was just like outside, and that's why.
Well, then I guess let's just say that.
Gyroscope.
Yeah, let's just yell gyroscope, and it makes sense now.
Okay, that's all I needed.
It's a moon. It's a small moon. It's smaller than Earth, much smaller than Earth. So the natural gravity on this place is light.
Right. But it's bigger than the moon. It's got to be.
Every time you walk around the space station, you have like pretty hefty magnets in your shoes that make it seem like regular gravity when you're walking around.
At least I hadn't thought about it yet, and at least up till that point, I was like, "Oh, they have the gravity turned on like they do in space movies. The gravity's turned on."
And in those cells, it's just like regular gravity, but they also have 2 magnets above, and you're just floating in magnets.
Okay. So then,
I sort of explained the thing that you cared about for some reason. Who cares? Who the fuck cares? Is my answer.
They have the slowest shootout ever. There's a sniper that has, for some reason. What? They didn't need a sniper. They needed an assassin to assassin.
Yeah, a knife guy. Yeah. Knives.
A sniper. He couldn't have been more than 10 yards away from him when he was trying to snipe him in that part that's
That
coming
probably
up
makes
here.
it harder when you're closer when you're sniping.
Yes, it
Do
absolutely
you know how
does.
quickly it moves
Have
when
you ever
you're
tried
like
to
zooming?
use a sniper rifle in close combat, even from the hip? It's no bueno.
On video games? Yeah.
Have you?
In video games, yeah.
Yo,
Video
no
games
scope.
aren't real, guys. You
No
guys know
scope.
this, right?
No,
Just
they're
like this
kind
movie.
of real though.
Just like this movie, that's not real.
Whoa. Kayla just tripped
I
out.
guarantee you that no sniper in all of history has been like, "Ah!" They shot somebody from the hip with their
That's true.
sniper rifle and got a headshot.
Well, not if they're shooting from the hip and not aiming up.
I mean, people don't just like go to war and
Kaylin,
360 no scope each
Stop
other.
trying to defend the fact that you've never shot a sniper rifle ever, but you've also never shot it from the hip.
Anyway, Sean Connery gets shot, and Sean Connery's now skulking around in the dark because he's shot.
Yes.
I don't know what to do. And the door opens. A door opens, and then he goes to knock out whoever's coming, and it's the doc.
It's the doctor, yeah.
What a babe.
Nope.
She says, like, I saw them following you, and they, you know, they have like their moment again. And he's like, all right. And he's like, go back to the whatever. And she's like, fuck no. I'm just, everyone on this place is gonna kill me now as well. Like,
Yeah.
they've seen me helping you. Like, why the fuck would I go back?
So instead, what he does is he suits up and goes outside.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get the
Maybe
jump.
like-
I'm gonna get the jump on these assassins by going outside the space station into half gravity.
Do you guys ever think that this is like his like? I never got to be in space as James Bond. That Roger Moore fucker.
That's
got to
why
do it
I
in
brought it up.
Moonraker.
I know Moonraker exists, but that's why I brought it up because Sean Connery, the only James Bond really, never got to go into space.
What about
Have you
Pierce Brosnan?
seen Moonraker? That movie is fucking wild and dumb.
I haven't seen it since I was a kid.
Yeah, those movies are like this.
Is that
Like,
Roger
that's-
Moore? You
Yes,
said?
yeah.
What about
Almost
Pierce?
like all the goofy James Bond movies before like the Pierce Brosnan era are like this kind of movie where it's like just, you know what, Jason, I give you credit at the beginning for saying it's like James Bond because it is. Like, this is the kind of shit that you're dealing with, or it's like you're excited and then it gets really boring.
Yeah.
Like really fast.
When I was a kid, me and my grandmother would watch James Bond movies on TBS, and I was like, they would have these moments of incredible action, and then a lot of blah 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 blah, quiet silence moments. A lot of people looking at
Yeah.
each other moments, like
They're
when
just like, well, but I
it's
will
the-
say that
it's
the
chess
moments of
playing that you
discussion.
were talking about.
Yeah, the
for
chess
James
playing in
Bond.
this movie is okay though. Like, there's some
Yeah.
good chess playing, and there's some really boring ass bad chess playing. Like, I like the idea of the moment where he brings his sergeant in and like asks like, "Am I gonna have help from you guys?" And he says no. But that whole scene is like very boring. Like, it's a boring scene, and you know, like his sergeant's about to leave, and you're like, you want the sergeant to turn around and like say something more, and then he doesn't. And you're like, what the fuck is this? This is just like,
Yeah.
and then like the writers are like, that's how it would happen in real life. And I'm like, I'm not watching this movie taking place in the moon of Jupiter for real life. Please give me something to grasp onto here. God damn it.
So we get to the final murder, the final James Bond murder, where he kills the guy in the corridor. We talked about that already. Still don't really know what happened in there. And then he starts climbing to the top of the station, and I know it looked cheesy as hell, but they do a wide shot of him climbing up the like ladder, or like, I guess it's a ladder, but it's outside the big
Scaffolding?
greenhouse.
Or like
He's climbing to the top of the greenhouse to get the last guy. He's now killed
Rafts.
2 people.
rafting.
Rafters?
Rafters.
Or do you mean like scaffolding? Because it's basically just a ladder, straight up. And then O'Neill's outside. The last guy's inside still with his sniper rifle. And O'Neill comes with this grand plan to pull like a piece of like the siding off the building and drop it in zero gravity, and it somehow cascades down like a leaf. This goon, this idiot
It's not
goon,
zero gravity. They're on a fucking moon. There's gravity.
half gravity. It cascades down like a leaf.
Also, side note, I used to watch Days of Our Lives with my grandparents.
See, that would be a perfect one where you like give us a little bit of context before you say the thing. Anyway,
Because you mentioned you used to watch...
My grandma
what do you
used
call
to
it?
drop shit onto my head, and she would yell "zero gravity" before she did it. Zero gravity.
But then this idiot Dune takes.
Teapot.
He's waiting for his shot. You see him looking around, and as it falls, it's clearly just like a rectangle falling. Like what could that even be? He just takes a shot.
It could be someone lying very flat.
So that was the. It made me frustrated. I'm like, there were literally 9 minutes left in this movie at this point, and I was like, why aren't the credits happening? There's usually 9 minutes of credits in a movie.
I skipped over this whole last battle because I thought the last battle was kind of like underwhelming as fuck. Like I kind of wanted it to be him just like shotgunning people in hallways. Like as soon as they go outside in the spacesuits, I was like, ugh.
But then another guy. Okay, so that was only the second. That was only the second guy. He shoots the glass. It explodes out. He gets sucked out into space in the worst special effect I've ever seen, possibly.
Ever?
Just a guy going like this, and then somebody edited it to like go out a hole. No, probably not ever. Probably not.
He was like this, and he went out a hole, and it was fucking terrible. Terrible. I've never seen something so fucking terrible in all my life.
But then he has a final battle with I think a guy from earlier in the movie.
It's his deputy.
That is his deputy, right?
Yeah.
And they have the worst hand-to-hand fist fight I've ever seen. It's less a fist fight and more like a struggle, and not unlike Superman 4, The Quest for Courage, or where the fuck that.
Oh yes, the one that we're all super familiar with.
No, you know the one where he fights Atom Man or whatever in space, and they're just like clearly on strings, and they're just like flailing.
Yeah, and they're like.
They're like this had that energy in spades where they like were just struggling like this is where the gravity element of it just made no sense, because was the gravity pulling them down? Because I feel like in the gravity that they presented us, you should be able to haul off and throw a punch.
You would be able to, yeah.
Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Gravity
Connery
doesn't make you punch slower.
Exactly.
That's like
Have you ever tried punching underwater?
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's not the same as space. There's a lot of water in the way of your punch.
I can still throw a punch underwater. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but okay. I think that Kaylin was saying, have you ever tried to throw a punch underwater, thinking that being in space is the same thing as being underwater? It's not. It's not the same. There's nothing. It's almost like you would be able to punch faster in space because there's no air.
In a dream. But he just pulls his air pipe out. The guy fucking dies. We don't. And then
is that the one where they don't show his head explosion? They show a two-head
vaporized. He turns into like ash.
He turns into electricity. Yeah. But through this whole scene, I did like the fact that on the outside of the space station, for some reason, when you touch the wall, it's like electrified. So there's one point where the deputy guy is holding Sean Connery's head against the wall, and it's just like sparking. Yeah. I did kind of like that. I thought that was dumb, but I thought it looked cool.
But it's cool, yeah.
So it makes sense when he pulls the guy's air tube and dumps him over the edge. He falls cascades like the thing I was talking about earlier, and he lands at the bottom, and I was like, is he going to explode? He's not going to explode. He doesn't explode, but he explodes into lightning, which was just...
That's why I said vaporized.
10 out of 10.
Like, she turned into nothing. Like,
I give that death a 5 out of 5.
All right. Well, I hope that brings the score all the way back up.
The way that I grade on a bell curve, so it actually brings the score down.
What does bell curve mean?
I'm pretty sure it goes like this, like a valley.
No, it's a bell. It's the people at the top are brought down by the people. I don't know. Look it up.
Which one's the one like a valley? Parabola?
Amica?
Anyway.
I'm surprised I didn't get a laugh from you guys.
When I was in Montreal this weekend, I kept saying Amica, and I turned to people and go, Amica? And they would look at me like, what the fuck is this guy saying?
And you're like, have you heard?
I've polluted my brain.
June 2022, the Amber Heard and Johnny Depp trial, possibly more like
I tried to explain it once, like one time to one guy, and then he was like, well, okay. And I was like, oh, God.
Yeah, you had to be there. You had to find it
I thought
funny.
I was going to get a laugh from you guys when I posted that picture in the group chat.
Well, I'm usually frustrated in my life, so I'm sorry if I don't laugh at all your jokes, Kaylin.
Yeah. Same.
O'Neill goes back and confronts the boss man, and
That's when he sucker
punches him right in the face.
And that's when the gravity really makes no sense.
And he smashes into the table, and it also basically explodes.
And then green font.
Yep.
But he also limps his way out, like, and then it's like the letter. Which I think is a good way to end a movie. Yeah, because
happy ending.
This movie, anyway, it was a good way to end this movie.
But also, I feel like he's gonna find another thing, right? Like another planetary incursion. No, not another wife.
No,
like he'll go back with his wife and his son.
He's going back to Earth, probably the most crime-filled planet in the whole galaxy.
If they were to make a sequel to this movie, his family would not exist. It would just be him, like, doing a Dirty Harry in space.
Yeah.
Like, that's what it would be. It
This
would be like, well,
Harry
now we got to send you to a moon of Venus. And he's like, Venus?
This should have been Charles Bronson in space. That's the thing. Imagine if you forget about all this family nonsense and he just or his family dies very early. He has to do a Punisher in space. This movie would have been excellent. If he had to do a Charles Bronson or a Punisher or a Dirty Harry or a Taxi Driver in space.
The family didn't really do anything for me, right? Like, nothing.
They were
just there for him to go back and have, like, these boring scenes where his wife's like, I don't know how to talk to you without crying.
They particularly wanted. They particularly
not cry while talking to her husband.
Well, she's hysterical. They particularly wanted this main character to have a happy ending and the most happy bullshit ending they could. And I keep thinking back to the fact that the decade preceding this, yes, was a decade filled with like hard-nosed, hard-boiled cops going into business for themselves and having to have their badges taken away in the beginning of the third act. And in this movie...
You know what? Good on them, though, for not using the R word as like a plot point, because that's what those movies all did. Every single one of them in the 70s. Have you ever seen one of those Charles Bronson Death Wish movies?
He uses the, like, frittata. He uses that constantly.
Oh, every single one.
He calls people frittatas through the whole movie.
No. S.A. is the plot. The R word for S.A. Rape.
Oh.
Jesus Christ.
We can still...
Trying so hard not to say it.
In that instance, I think we can still say that word. I don't think
it's... yell it twice in a row.
No.
Like it's an alarm.
What's S.A. mean?
Sexual assault. You could have just said sexual assault, actually. I don't know if we can say that on Twitch, actually. Shit. Anyway.
That's why I was trying to
get you to
figure out what I was talking about.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, you should probably ask us our final thoughts.
All right.
Are we at that point of the episode?
We are. I gotta get up and.
We actually filled a full episode. Surprisingly, when we all said we weren't going to be able to say much.
Yeah. We barely tangented.
We tangented enough to fill a movie that we had absolutely nothing to talk about, which is great.
I love the tangent.
All right. So we got to the end. We talked about it. We didn't talk about some of the best parts, which
Tell us.
Well, like when he goes to the doctor's office the first time and he says, "Are you the doctor?" And she says, "Yeah, take 2 of these aspirin and call me in the morning." That's a doctor joke. And he says, "I'm going to slap you up and down this fucking doctor's office if you don't tell me what I need to know." That's a marshal.
Kick your nasty
That's
ass.
a marshal joke. And you're like, oh no, this is not good. A good look for you, Sean Connery. And that's like 15 years before Barbara Walters was like, "So, do you believe in hitting women?" And he's like, "If they're hysterical." You're like, oh god. What the fuck? Anyway, Sean Connery is a bad guy, and Kaylin, you kind of look like him right now.
Yeah, I was thinking that.
Your hair and your beard.
He's a real old Hollywood piece of shit, but look at Sean Connery and then look at Kaylin. Holy shit!
Yeah, it's. Your camera froze for a minute, and you were like, and like it looked like the poster for this movie. Yeah. Okay, so Kaylin, final thoughts on the movie. Don't talk about beating women, you psychopath.
I would never. So I'm gonna be brutally honest, but in a nice way. I tried multiple times to watch this movie, and
Oh my God, you sound like you're giving a fucking eulogy.
It almost is like that. Excuse me. Last night / this morning. So I watched it last night, but then I watched it again this morning. And I was able to appreciate like 2 weeks ago or whenever it was when I first watched it. I couldn't concentrate. Like I wasn't captivated or whatever. Excuse me, which I think might be a combination of editing and also story, but I wasn't able, like it didn't keep my attention. But then I physically made myself like, well, I mean, I got high, but like,
I mean, I was high, but it didn't do anything for me.
It was a little fucked up, but not enough to enjoy it.
I was more conscious about wanting to try to pay attention, and there was things that I was like, you know what, that was done well. That like there are aspects of this movie that were done really well, and it just, for whatever reason, the full package just didn't hit home for me. But there were aspects of it that were done well, and I think Jason, I think you made a point about if it was trimmed, if some of the fat was trimmed off of it, it would have hit home a little bit better. All in all, I never heard of it before. I'm glad that you brought it to the table so that I can say that I have seen it. There were aspects that I enjoyed a lot, for sure. And at the end of the day, I'm going to give it I'm going to sleep for a year and then wake up like it was only moments ago.
I wish that was how I felt about it when I did watch it years ago and then woke up, because I would be like, oh, I shouldn't make these guys watch this movie. Very good. Very good. Very good.
That's way worse than you think it is.
What? It's supposed to be ambiguous. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing?
It sounds like you were like, this movie for an hour and 40 minutes felt like an eternity.
Snoozer.
Felt like I was watching it for a whole year, but then when I finished it, I couldn't ever try and tell you what it was about. Jason, go ahead.
All right. Well, I had more fun talking about this movie than I did watching it. I will say that. I think overall this movie is like, it's decent enough for an 80s flick. It's cool. It's cool. It's cool looking a lot of the time. The atmosphere it's pretty tight. I felt like I was there. Unfortunately, it's very slow. It's very plodding. It's very like a slow burn when it doesn't need to be, like we talked about all through. And it made me like, every time I like, this whole experience for this particular movie felt like book club, like you see when they do the book club trope in sitcoms, where the person like sits down to read their book club book and they're like, their mind wanders or they fall asleep. I kept feeling this anxiety about watching this movie because it made me immediately bored. And that's not to say that this movie is boring overall necessarily. There's just long swaths of really boring moments. The exterior shots are very cool, and the practical effects are very well done for the era, but it made my eyes heavy, unfortunately. It would be a very fun watch with friends, like I said. Like if the three of us watch it together, it would be fucking dope, and I will recommend it. Watch it. If you think Sean Connery's voice is hilarious and Sean Connery as a person is hilarious, watch this at a get-together with your friends, and it'll be a fun movie to have on the background and make fun of. But to be analytical about a movie like this flies in the face of movie reviewing. However, it works perfectly for a what? It works perfectly for a movie review
Flies
show.
in the face of movie reviewing.
That's not what I meant. And if you would listen to everything I wanted to say, it works perfectly for a movie review show for the internet, digging up old movies and asking, hey, did you see this one? Because you literally asked us, hey, did you see this one? We said no, and we watched it, and we came out on the other side.
This is one of those movies that is literally built for this show.
Exactly. And I fully appreciate and I fully respect. And like Kaylin said, I would never have seen this or heard about it, and I'm glad that I did watch it, and I'm glad that I can form an opinion on it.
It's so weird that it exists.
Yeah.
It's such a weird movie to exist. Anyway, sorry.
No, I was done. That's it. I give it a 2.2 out of 5, unfortunately. And a lot of that, even the storyline in the story in this movie is like the worst part of it. There's basically no story, like
Jason, this is the first time that in the entirety of doing this with you, when you give it below a 50, I'm usually like, you're failing this bitch. And you're like, oh, maybe I'll bring it up a bit. This is the first time I'm like, yeah, no, that's fine. I 100% agree with you. Yeah, it's a fail.
I did bring it up a bit. In fact, I brought it from a 2 to a 2.2 because I did notice that I like talking about the practical effects and thinking about them more.
There's a lot of cool things.
It does have a lot of little cool things in it, and that's why I think if it was just tightened up a bit, I don't even think editing was the problem. I think it was just like tightening up the conceit of the plot and the problems going on in the movie, and maybe even change, maybe like you said, maybe change how this people going crazy is perceived and make it a little bit more psychedelic. It's 1981. Psychedelic shit's still happening in movies and TV. Like, people are still.
Have you ever seen the movie Dread? The movie Dread.
Yeah.
The new one?
Either, but
the newish one.
Yeah.
The new movie.
He just attacks a building for fucking 90 minutes, and it's amazing.
There are like 3 or 4 moments where people do drugs and that, and it's like the coolest fucking shit you ever saw.
Yes.
And in this movie, it's like someone just being like, "I'm in a red room. The red light means I'm crazy," and you're like, "Ugh."
It's bad filmmaking for a movie that has so much good filmmaking in it. That's the problem that I have.
It's not bad filmmaking, it's bad science fiction.
Yeah, and the science fiction isn't especially well used for as
it's
as
not
good
science fiction. That's the issue with this movie, is that it's not science fiction.
It's a hard-boiled cop drama that just happens to take place on a fucking mining station on the planet Io.
I'm gonna harvest the energy of what you've just said and go right into mine, if that's okay. It's not science fiction. This movie is not science fiction in any way. This movie, the only thing that this movie utilizes science fiction in order to elevate itself is people having to punch numbers in to open a door. It is somebody golfing in a thing that already existed in the time period, probably. Like somebody just invented.
Sorry,
like
I don't want to interrupt
golf.
you. I don't know if that had actually been invented yet.
But
virtual golf?
That's why I'm saying probably had been, and someone probably came up with it that year.
Yeah,
it's like having the Nintendo Wii in your game, in your movie before Nintendo Wii comes out, kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Like somebody probably came up with that technology like a couple years earlier, and like they were still developing it, and they're like, let's put it in this movie, and then like all those fucking like golfing ranges and like strip malls opened up and shit. Yeah, like this movie it's a rough idea of like what the future can be, and like it sucks. Like it's a shitty version of it because they're grasping onto the reality of the time. They're like you were saying, Jason, throughout, and I know I kind of like stepped on what you were saying, but like they had literally no imagination. There was nothing in this movie that was imaginative except for that one prison. Like that was the one thing that I was like, whoa, that would be fucked up. Like, and like everything else, I was just like, okay, they're on elevators and doing mining, and like if you go deep enough in a mine, you're gonna have to wear like a suit if you're the first miner in there. Like they don't know what kind of chemicals and air is, and like your air toxicity can't handle it. Like that shit already existed. Like nothing in this movie is groundbreaking at all. And the only thing about it that I liked, which is like the weakest part about it, which is that it's just a basic cop story in space. Like you take a cop story and you put it on the moon of Jupiter. Let's just tell the tale. And like when you think about it, they could have saved a lot of money by just like filming it in Los Angeles or some shit. They didn't have to make all these crazy sets. But at the same time, like there are parts of me that like while I'm watching it, I appreciate the craft. I appreciate what they're doing, and I appreciate that they were willing to do that at the time. And it really sucks that this movie didn't like push the genre further. I think if anything, this movie kind of like shoved it in a direction, and then like people were like, "Ugh, no!" Like we can't look at that. Like that movie really didn't do anything for the genre. This movie is like Aliens for idiots. Like like when you watch Aliens, you're like, holy shit, my imagination's going crazy. But like an idiot goes in and they're like, so is that an alien or is that an alien? Like that's what this kind of feels like. Like they just want things to be familiar and normal and like strange, but not too strange. They want to be able to recognize the villain, and it's unfortunate. It's a very unfortunate movie, and I apologize for forcing this upon you guys, because I remember loving it, and watching it for the second time I was like, this is not really as great as I thought it could be. It seems like a subquest in a movie or in a video game where you're like having to save the universe. This is like some weird side quest that you just
where there's drugs on the ship, figure out the drugs.
Yeah, you just had to encounter this.
Yeah.
Which, that's kind of what Judge Dredd is as well, but like this didn't really kind of pull it off. So what I'm going to give this is Sean Connery in space with a shotgun. No space shoot. No shit. He's just floating in space like, holy shit. He's like, how do I get back? He can breathe still. He can still breathe. And he's like, oh, what the fuck? And he's just floating out there in space. That's my review.
Sweet.
All right.
Well,
I don't want to tell the folks at home about our special surprise for next week, but I do want to say there's a special surprise for next week.
And there is a special surprise for next week. There's a special episode happening on Tuesday next week. We will give details throughout the week that might give you a clue as to what that is. It's a huge deal. It's a huge milestone for our show, and I don't want to say it now. That's one thing I actually don't want to do. But Steve, do you have any questions to ask us?
I have at least one question for each of you, and I'm gonna ask it now.
Hey, did you see this one? Wait, hey, did you see this one?
Hey, did you see this one?
I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but I think we missed something.
No, I know. We're doing it in reverse this week. Hey, did you see this one?
Okay. Can I do I don't think I can do it.
Do it.
No, I can't do it.
Do it. The penis smite ya. Try it.
Mother punner.
Say the penis smite ya.
Did you see this one?
Perfect.
See what I did with my face there?
Yeah,
so much.
That was great.
All right, for Kaylin and for Jason, I am Steven.
For Kaylin, for Steven, I'm
Jason and Steven. Oh shit, my bad. Sorry.
I don't care.
Okay, go ahead.
For Kaylin and Steven, I'm Jason.
No, but you both said my name first. It's not fair.
For Kaylin and for Jason, I'm Steven.
For Kaylin and for Kaylin, I'm Kaylin. And hey, I still have.
Kaylin, say
no. We already
thing.
did that part. I still didn't get to do my part.
You need to not. You need to be able to break out of change. You need to change your life sometimes.
Look, I don't disagree that change is good and progressive and all that other good stuff, but at the same time, a little bit of like organization or whatever just makes my mind feel so much better.